Hi, this is another devlog. I still have been implementing systems for the past 2 weeks, meaning that the content I'll be talking about will be something I'll be adding in the near future when I have the technical side of things sorted out. Okay, now for the changes. I've added the system for alerts. When something interesting or dangerous is happening, the player will be informed. Those alerts can be dismissed by a right click, as you'd expect. Next up, I added working budgets for each wing of the government. They depend on credits and resources. If there isn't enough of a supply for the resources required in the budget, then that section of the government will function at reduced effectiveness. For example, if your military requires 1,000 soldiers, but only 600 are available on the market, then your army will only function at 60% effectiveness. In addition to the effects from the wing of the government, the officer managing it also has effects. So far, I only implemented the framework, but in the future, competent officers will, for example, reduce the cost of the budget and increase the general effectiveness of their department. Next, I added popularity in elections. Every few years, if you're playing a democratic faction, you'll have to win elections and stay popular among your peers, so that they'll be comfortable with you staying as the party leader. When you lose elections, you don't outright lose the campaign. If you lost by a small percentage, you might even be able to pull out a win through some fraud and corruption. But if you lost by a significant margin, the only way to stay in power will be through violent force. This could be anything from just assassinating your opposition to just straight up declaring a dictatorship. On the other hand, if you win elections by a significant margin, your party will be in a stronger position to rule, which would, for example, translate into being able to pass policies much easier. The review of your position as party leader will be somewhat similar. If the people in your party dislike you, you can just honorably resign. Or if you have a really good relationship with the people in the military, you can persuade your party to keep you as the leader. Next, I've added all of the policies I want to have in the demo in August. So far, they're mostly just descriptions and names, but the entire system of adding and removing policies has been implemented. To pass a policy, you first will need to fulfill the requirements for it. Some policies will have none at all, some will have many. If you've got that handled, then you can choose between one of the two ways of implementing policies. Either just straight up use your political capital to force the policy through, or you can passively support it and hope that over time your party will want to implement it. The more support a policy has, the more likely that is to happen. The passive option is much cheaper, but you don't have a guarantee when the policy will pass. Another thing is that it's not viable for controversial policies, because as long as the support is below 0, there is no chance of that policy being implemented. So those are the direct ways of interacting with a policy, but there is more. You can promote a policy or ask someone to promote a policy and increase its momentum. Momentum is a multiplier for the support or opposition for a given policy. It fades with time, but it will be a very important tool in your political career. Next, you can just convince people to support a given policy. As long as they don't hate you, they'll consider it. Of course, not everyone in the party has the same degree of power, which is why focusing on high-ranking ministers is advisable. Also, if you're, for example, trying to pass a new tax, it's much smarter to focus on the minister of the economy, as they will have triple of the normal amount of sway in regards to policies they specialize in. And the last big way of influencing policy is changing who holds power in your society. If you're trying to pass policies for the common people, then make sure that a lot of them vote in elections or participate in local politics. That will increase their political sway and ultimately make it easier for you to pass populist policies. Then again, if you make them really engage in politics, then you yourself will have a hard time implementing controversial policies. Okay, time to go to the other changes I've made. I've added information for important demographic groups. You're presented with a list of likes and dislikes of implemented policies. so that if you want to cater to a particular demographic, you'll have an easier time finding out what they dislike. Another thing is that I've implemented the functionality that makes each demographic affect your society. If they like you, it's a positive effect. If they dislike you, vice versa. The magnitude of these effects depends on the size of the demographic and the degree to which they like or dislike you. Soon I'll be adding the functionality for rebellion, meaning that if a demographic despises you, they might take up their arms and fight you. Next up, I've implemented the military. Only the army portion of the military, that is, as in the future you'll have fleets and station defenses, but that will wait until I've added other factions, which will happen after the demo in August. Currently, the army can take orders and focuses. Focuses give a passive boost at the cost of draining your army readiness each week. Orders, on the other hand, do something instantly at a large cost of army readiness. The effectiveness of the army depends on leadership, funding, training, and other such factors. Now, the last thing worth mentioning is that I added effects that have a chance of happening. It might not sound that impressive, but it actually took some work to get it going. So that's about it for all the major stuff I can remember. Each week I'm getting closer and closer to finishing the technical side of the game that I want to have ready for August. In this file I'm highlighting all the things I still need to get done. And those short phrases might not mean a whole lot to you, but to me it means that I'm very close to just being able to add content to the game. So far I was stuck with having to do a lot of the foundation for the game, but now I'll finally be able to get to the part that makes it fun. Optimistically, I'd like to say that I want to release the demo in the middle of August, because I've been making great progress. But for now, I'll still say that you should rather expect it at the end of August. I'm really hoping that I'll have at least 7 or 8 people willing to prototype the game. So if you're interested enough in the project to watch to the end, consider subscribing, because in the end, I want to make a good game. And for that to happen, I'll need the feedback of experienced strategy players. Well, that's it for today. I'll be back in 2 weeks.